Shall we gather at the river? Shall we gather at the river? We often think of it as a country tune, but it was written by a preacher who served in Brooklyn, New York. And he was known as the Good Doctor, Robert Lowry. Though he was known as a preacher for being able to speak in a way that people captured the vision of what he was seeing in his mind, what we know him as is a musician, both lyrics and music writer. A couple of hymns that we know his music to is Marching to Zion and I Need Thee Every Hour. He didn't write those words, but he wrote those music. But the words and music that we know him for is the Easter tune, Up from the Grave He Arose, and Shall We Gather at the River. He, Lowry was a preacher during the Civil War and had many funerals and many times of despair. The congregation suffered much because of losing many members to the war, and yet he continued to preach the good news of Christ in the midst of that. In 1864, while he was serving a church, it was the summertime and it was a hot day. Well, I'll give you his words, what he wrote about writing Shall We Gather at the River. He said, "One afternoon in July in 1864, when I was pastor at Hanson Place Baptist Church in Brooklyn, the weather was oppressively hot, and I was lying on a lounge in a state of physical exhaustion. I felt almost incapable of bodily exertion, and my imagination began to take wings. Visions of the future passed before me with startling vividness. The imagery of the apocalypse took the form of a tableau. Brightest of all were the throne, the heavenly river, and the gathering of the saints. My soul seemed to take new life from the celestial outlook. I began to wonder why the hymn writers had said so much about the river of death and so little about the pure water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of the God and the Lamb. As I mused, the words began to construct themselves. They came first as a question of Christian inquiry. Shall we gather? Then they broke out in a chorus. Yes, we shall gather. On this question and answer, the hymn developed itself. The music came with the hymn. Shall we gather at the river?